Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of AI Security Ops, where we are going to talk about a new benchmarking framework that was put out for AI pen testing agents. But before we hop into that, as always, let's talk to you about Black Hills Information Security, one of our proud sponsors, and on Derek's shirt right there, the sick logo, and that is retro, love it, old school. If you or your company are in need of any kind of security testing, external, internal, AD reviews, web apps, physical pen testing, wireless, social engineering, literally anything you could think of security related, or security operations center monitoring type services, Black Hills Information Security offers all of that and more. Check us out today at blackhillsinfosec.com. Additionally, if you are interested in training for you or your organization, we do also have a training branch, Anti-Siphon Training, where all of our good folks at Black Hills, or not all of them, but good folks at Black Hills who do these things day in and day out, package up all their knowledge together in a nice format for you to consume to help you move along in your career, understand things a little bit better, and at a very affordable price. So check out antisiphontraining.com. So let's hop into this. Everyone's been asking, can AI replace pen testers? And this paper actually tried to measure it, and the results were pretty interesting. The research, it was a benchmark that they put out for testing different agentic AI pen testing components, we'll say. And they call it AutoPenBench. And who was this paper actually put out by? Let's take a look here. So I don't have the author in front of me. I'm sure it was multiple authors. Looks like people from a couple different groups. Polito, Unito, and NEC Lab out of Italy and Germany. Looks like a couple of researchers out of that area. But what do we got? So they basically put together a set of hacking challenges for AI agents to attempt to complete. And they had two different flavors of these challenges, what they called in vitro, or textbook scenarios of SQL injection, path traversal, weak passwords, and then also more of the real world CVEs of things like log for shell, heartbleed, spring for shell, and a few others. And what it is the AI gets a Kali Linux machine to utilize and has to find and exploit the target without any hints. So that's pretty interesting. Derek, have you ever tried pointing AI at CTF or lab environment to see what happens?
Well, I have, but before I talk about that, I think it's interesting that they chose to give the AI like a Kali Linux machine. I mean, it seems kind of like overkill, but I don't know. I mean, I guess it's one way to do it, right? Computer control. But I think just that in itself kind of, I don't know, defeats the, what's the term, the bitter lesson, where really you should give the AI just as much context as needed to like complete the goal and let the model do like quote the heavy lifting, and just question whether or not that, if you just give it access to a system, I don't know. Then again, I mean, if I would have done my homework, I could have read the paper and maybe I would have the answer to my question. So my experience is kind of like what we'll talk about here in the punchline here in a little bit, but just giving AI access to tools and some prompts to go do the hacky hack kind of leads to mediocre results. I think that there's much more context that needs to be given. Long story short, I've been working on kind of a custom internal agentic framework that it's custom coded, and all the agents are custom coded. And still, it does an okay job. It's found stuff that our humans missed, but also our humans find stuff that it's missed. And so I do think that, as they say here, fully autonomous, they said it had a 21% success rate in terms of the vulnerabilities that they were testing for, where human assisted had a 64% success rate. And that's kind of been my experience, is that I think that at the moment, autonomous pen testing platforms aren't, quote, going to kill security, at least at this point in time in 2026. So spring of 2026.
No. Yep. No, I don't think so either. I think it's still we have that that kind of symbiosis might be the right word there between the AI and the human still, where they're augmenting one another throughout these processes.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of promise for sure, especially if you try and like what we're doing to encapsulate our institutional knowledge, essentially to give the folks who are starting a test, our analysts, kind of like a leg up in the investigation. Because, things AI is good at going through a lot of data and making sense of it, summarizing it. I mean, when you start off with an external penetration test, you typically start with a mound of data that needs to be analyzed, right? And then you move on to doing manual stuff. And, I had an AI agent basically find a critical, and the tool it was using was curl to look at web services. So I don't think that it needs to be, super complicated. Again, like give the AI just enough tools and context, and then let a human look at the results.
Yeah, and then kind of go through. It's going to be an iterative process too, right? I mean, it's never going to be you just set this thing up and it's ready to go. I mean, it's going to be this nice feedback loop of you give it the instructions, it finds results, you go through the results and review, and you're like, oh hey, I noticed that there were these things that didn't get chained together, or hey, I think it's missing this information, or maybe should have looked here a little bit more, and then you start updating your prompts, updating scaffolding and harnesses around it, maybe adding in additional tools or abilities for it, or maybe constraining things as well too. You might find that it's starting to look at things you didn't want it to, which I found when I was testing out some of our stuff recently against Black Hills. It found things that were related to people who worked here but weren't actually Black Hills infrastructure.
Oh, right.
And
It was a GitHub repo, right? It was like, how do
yeah,
you
yeah.
find my
When I
GitHub
first looked at
repo?
it, I was like, what is this thing? And then I went and I did a little bit more digging and then realized, oh, that was one of it's the URL is like one of our testers' names, but it's like broken up into different chunks. And it's like, oh, I see it now.
Right.
But yeah.
So
So things like that you just iterate through and kind of, make better each time, right?
also, I'd be interested to see, it looks like the models that they were using, GPT-4o, Gemini Flash, and O1. Well, I mean, those are a little dated at this point. I'm not saying it invalidates the research at all. I think the percentages now would be higher than 21 and 64%. Using even, like right now, like some open weight models that I've been testing with that are specifically have been, fine tuned to do agentic, quote, long horizon tasks. I mean, they're quite good. They're not. I think I still would say that it's not, fully autonomous. Isn't ready for prime time. We're not gonna, have the sci-fi. What is it? Neuromancer. Everybody gets an AI that hacks kind of thing, right? Not yet,
Yeah.
but it's probably coming. So
Yep. Yeah, and looking at this, so this paper actually is, I guess, a little bit dated, a little bit older. So this is,
well, you know
was
how
it 20?
academic papers work, right? Like you do the
Yeah. Oh,
research,
it can take forever.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so it takes
But
a hot minute sometimes. So they probably did this last year, right?
yep. Yeah, it looks like it. Yep, somewhere around there.
Which also probably
Um,
explains my earlier comment of why did you just give it Kali? Now they might take a different approach after, the Claude code wave and the agentic coding wave would seem like a better choice to kind of go down the like that kind of route now. But this time last year, that's not the route I was going down.
yep. Yeah, and so another thing that's noted is that they had to use a role-playing jailbreak to get the LLM to complete the tasks because the model's own safety filters were blocking it, which is to be expected. But as we were discussing earlier, oftentimes that just says telling, or that just means telling the model that you're authorized to do something. And then if it says no, then you just like tell it that no, really, really, I'm authorized, or this is hypothetical, or
We're doing a
whatever.
CTF. Well, that's what the Chinese were doing with the Anthropic models, and when they had their hacking operation uncovered, Anthropic was saying that's basically what they were doing is essentially lying to the model in small things like, yeah, we're authorized to do this. I mean, and the way LLMs work, it doesn't know, right? And so I think that's interesting. But I will say that, I mean, I use AI frontier models to hack, all the time. And it's pretty much as easy as saying I'm on an authorized pen test. Like if you're using a chat bot, but if you control the system prompt and are using an AI, yeah, I don't even really have to do that, right? My system prompt basically says, we're hacking, let's do it, kind of thing. And so I haven't ran into an internal guardrail, but I know some of our other researchers have doing like vulnerability research, like in the nuts and bolts of like Windows, they've gotten some internal guardrail stuff, but
Yep. Yeah, but usually it's just a matter of time of trying to get around it. I mean, the providers are coming out with their supposedly vetted security vendor vetted offerings of where they vet you and then allow you access to models that have less guardrails in place, but we still don't know. I mean, is that a matter of they remove certain system prompts, put in certain system prompt instructions? Have they fine-tuned the model to try to internally remove? Are they doing their own ablation process? We don't really know at this point of what that actually means. And does it make a difference?
I think we get a different system prompt when we're using their apps. I mean, that would be the easiest thing, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I can't imagine that they have like now you get this access to this other, Opus 4.6. I mean, it's possible for sure.
Yeah, but from like a financial and business perspective, how much it costs to actually make those changes.
And like a routing your traffic versus someone else's perspective. Like, yeah, I don't know. But I mean, just so far in 2026, I haven't had a whole lot of pushback from any model doing any kind of security work. I think maybe I've just gotten used to like how I phrase my input, and then also maybe it helps using like an ongoing persistent agent with memory that remembers things for me. I mean, that probably helps too.
Yeah, the whole it agreed to something earlier, so it'll continue agreeing to it.
It knows who I am, what I do. I have a personal context portfolio and a Telos file like Daniel Miessler, and like I think that, when I start sessions, I think all that stuff gets sent to Anthropic. And so they're like, I will say that it probably also means that, at least in the case of like Anthropic or OpenAI, that when your queries come in and they flag something, because let's face it, they're probably doing classification on your input. I would.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, how else do you catch the Chinese, right? That doesn't mean you store it. That means they're just, essentially running like an IDS kind of thing. If they flag my account and see, oh, this is part of Black Hills Information Security, we know who they are. They're not, doing things against the law. They might let that slide where another account might get banned, right? So that's probably, I think. But they actually did say to us that they lowered our guardrails. I'm like, oh, well, thank you.
No, thanks.
I appreciate that.
Thanks, Anthropic.
Yeah. So the other thing that was in here that I thought was kind of neat was, and probably something that we all knew, but maybe we need to hear is, I do think that this kind of lowers the bar. Yeah, lowers the bar for people being able to do things like hacking or coding or whatever. And so someone who might not have had the skills to run a global ransomware campaign can probably do that now.
Yeah. It's a lot easier for them to put together all the pieces that they need to do for that rather than coming up with it from scratch. Because, coming up with that from scratch, how do you even start searching for that? Google, how do I create a global ransomware attack?
It's like an Office Space, like how do I launder money? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But now you got a source that'll kind of consolidate for you if you ask it nicely in the right way. No.
So I think the last part, the so what? So 64% on real CVEs. I keep saying this. If you thought you had to keep things patched and up to date in the past, now so more than ever, especially externally. I think running things on the edge of your network is something that I would apply very much increased scrutiny of. If it were me and you asked me or my opinion on those kinds of things, I would say I would even do packet capture, network traffic analysis on the outside of your network. That is how the Palo Alto compromise, was it last year or was it year before? The years run together now. That's how it was detected, was running Zeek essentially on the outside and seeing that a Palo Alto firewall was running curl out to somewhere on the internet and bringing back said thing. And that's typically not what you want your firewall doing, I wouldn't think.
No.
And so, it's not perfect, but at least, defense in depth kind of thing. And then also, if you're a red teamer, if you're on the offensive side and you're not using AI to make your life better and easier and more efficient, you're missing out.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a necessity at this point. It's going to become the expectation, and if you're not utilizing it, you're certainly going to fall behind, without a doubt. It's already happening.
And if you're in the unique position like Brian and I, where you're trying to build an agentic AI penetration testing platform, certainly a lot easier than or a lot harder than it sounds. It sounds easy because you see on Twitter everybody and their brother has some agentic AI penetration testing framework out. But now I would say that if you're building such a thing, I would early on introduce some kind of benchmark, because it's hard to determine, is it not finding anything because this customer is really good, or is it not finding anything because this is broken?
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have some scientific results, right? So you don't have moving targets and a lot of unknowns. So that way you can truly see, is this getting better, and how can I improve it, and how well does it actually do? So I think benchmarks are absolutely essential. And it sounds like we've got the benchmark that we've spoken about here, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of others on the horizon that will come out.
All right. So I guess we'll wrap it up and say fully autonomous AI hacking is still mediocre. Human in the loop AI hacking is already good and getting better. Like we said, if it was already good with O1 and GPT 4.0, well, those are so last year. Right?
So yesterday.
And so, stuff's moving fast, so try and keep up.
With that, I hope you enjoyed, and keep on prompting.